what your ministries can do in God's power. This is incredible. Let's go from maybe the profound to the sublime. And let's talk about something just very, very basic. Inviting people to come to church. Inviting people to come to church. Just as basic as that. Whether it is for the first day of a opening day of a new church, or several weeks into a new start, or whether it's for an established church. Let's just talk about that reality. I'm going back to our interviews with unchurched persons. And here is what we found. Simple statement. If you were invited to come to church, would you come? Just simple statement as that. I'm going to expand upon it in a minute, but let's start with that simple statement. Over 80% said they would come to church if invited. Now I'm going to come back to that in just a minute. Just hang on to that because I'm not done with it. But look at the corresponding, even though it is the same number, look at the corresponding number at the bottom. 80% of unchurched America told us that they have never, ever been invited to church in their entire lives. This isn't in the last year. This isn't in the last 5 years. This is, has anyone ever invited you to church? Over 80% said no. And over 80% said they would come if invited. Now, would come and do come are two different things. I understand that. There are a lot of people who can say yes and never show up. So we dug a little bit deeper. We said, really? You really would come? What would it take? Almost to the person, exceptions of course, but almost to the person, they said we would come to church if somebody walked into they didn't refer to it as the worship service, but I'm going to just call it the worship service. If someone walked into the building with us, to the facility, to whether it was a rented facility and a school or whether it was an established building, they said we would come if someone walked into that place with us. We found out something about these unchurched. They are not antagonistic toward Christians. They're not antagonistic toward the church. Of course, there are some who are, but as a rule, they are not. And they also told us that they would come to church if these church people went with them. Either picked them up and brought them to church and met them someplace and walked into the place with them. They are terrified, they told us, of walking into a church by themselves. Whether it is an existing structure that is a typical church edifice, a storefront church, a rented facility, whatever, they are scared to death to come into a place by themselves, but they will come if you will not only invite them, but come into the building with them, okay? They've told us two things now. Number one, that they would come if invited, and then secondly, they had a caveat with that, and that caveat is that they want you to walk into the building with them. We took it one step further. We dispersed our research team and started actually inviting people to certain churches across the United States. We actually dispersed geographically. Our research team has gone literally to all 50 states. We have different people that are more familiar with different regions. I specialize in Hawaii and Florida, but everybody else goes all over the United States. And particularly Florida, I have a subspecialty within Florida that is called non-hurricane season coastal churches, and that's typically the time that I go. Well, we scattered our research team all across the country. Flew them out at all different places, and we said, okay, we're going to put you with this church, and the minister of that church said, that's fine, we'll work with them. And over a 2-week period, they started inviting people to church and said, but we will walk into the church building with you. These were unchurched people. What literally happened? 69% of these unchurched people came to church. 69. 80% said they would come if not only invited, but someone would walk in with them, and 69% actually did do what they said that they would do. We tried the other way, invite them to come to church, and if they said yes and just say, well, we'll see you there at a certain time, the number was 12%. That's not bad. But it's not 80 and it's not 69. Just a little bit of effort. Just a little bit of someone making a small sacrifice.